There we go. So it's another Hot Topic Tuesday. We are already, guys, it's what, basically 7 weeks into 2026. I hope it's going well for you. Hopefully your activities, your actions are in alignment with your goals. Let that one sink in for a second. With that, I'm going to say let's talk about today's subject matter. So, how many of you saw any news regarding what our state government's looking at in regards to be able to assist in the property tax reform? Anybody see anything on that? All right. Well, then this is a good thing. And I see Jamie just popped his head on here. So, Jamie, anything that you may know, I know you got a lot more involvement than I ever do on this. But feel free to jump in. Today could be a quick day, guys. But the first one was this is something that I've been saying for years, and I know that Michigan Realtors has been going to our government and our state officials saying, we got to do something. We got to do something. And for those who don't know, Jamie is past president within the last couple of years of the Michigan Realtors. And so that's Jamie. Anytime that you want to jump in and add to this, please feel free because I know that was a question that I asked Jamie. What are we doing from the Michigan Realtors perspective to jump on that? So Jamie, I'm gonna maybe I'll tell you what. Let me go through this few slides that I've got on this, and then I'm gonna have you jump in and add whatever you may be able to add to that. So thanks for being on with me. So here's what we know. Let me go back. Uh, the legislature is definitely out there and talking about getting things improved. We're going to talk about one of the biggies is that they're making an adjustment for senior citizens. Now, this is in consideration, hasn't passed yet, but we have to know that 60% of the people in state of Michigan, Michigan residents, it's 25% of the population. So it's something that they're looking to be able to do. And right now, what that is for those 65 years and older, they're looking to be able to save up to 10% of what their current property tax bill would be. They're stating that on average, that's going to be about $345. I first looked at this and I went, well, that's not a big deal. I'm 65. I'll hit 66 here on March 19th. And I went, that's not really a big deal. But you know what? There's a lot of seniors where that $345 is going to make a big difference, depending upon, again, where they're at. The other thing that they've got, we look at the legislative perspectives. We've got Speaker of the House, Matt Hall, who is very much behind making things different. This is a simple statement that he's made. And I think this is important because being Speaker of the House, there's a little bit of drive and control on this. But my understanding is it's a bipartisan thing that's going on. That's important because that means both sides of the House are behind getting something done. Now, right now, there's Senate Bills 344, 345. What do they do? Tax credit eligibility to more low and moderate income households. Um, how is it changing? It's adjusting the criteria thresholds that would allow people to get some relief from property taxes. Of course, fiscal, community impact, legislative context. There's some pluses for this. I think really what we're looking at is what are the Michigan realtors being able to do us? And I'm going to say again, I asked Jamie a couple years back when he was president, what are we doing from the realtor level to take care of one key issue that I think has really um, been an issue for us in the state of Michigan, and that's the pop-up tax. If you not heard that term, it is the term customarily used. So, in simple terms, it is this: when someone sells their home, and we're speaking in general terms, when someone sells their home, the taxable value is no longer what the new people will be taxed on. It pops up to what the state equalized value is, and their taxes will be based on that new taxable value. Their taxable value will become the state equalized value. Now, that's again speaking in general terms. What has that done and how has that impacted us in real estate? Well, what's the incentive to sell? If I buy up, my taxes are going to probably double. And that's the real issue. So there's really almost it acts as I don't even know if this is a word, but I'll make it up. A disincentive. The It's like it's a discouragement that keeps people from selling their home and moving up. So this has been the biggest issue that I think it's given us. It was a great thing back in 90, what were it, 95, I believe, or maybe it was 90. I don't know. Yeah, it was 95 when this came around, 94, 95. It was great. It really reduced our property taxes pretty much by a third. Some cases it was even more with that restructuring how they did this. But again, now they created the problem that we deal with now. So, Jamie, if you want, you can kind of jump in and add whatever else you might be able to give to us on this.
I don't have a ton, but I will say that thank you first. I will say that Michigan Realtor staff is second to none when it comes to influence and ability to have the hard conversations at the state level. I've seen in action that legislators will come to them not only to ask, how to float ideas past them, but also, what can you bring us? What can we do for you? So that's a great relationship that our staff has. From this particular perspective, a task force was created out of the public policy group at the beginning of last year or the end of the year prior, so end of 2024, beginning of 2025, and that task force was looking at ways to not circumvent, but ways to reduce the impact of the pop-up tax and begin to address the property tax issue. And part of the problem, as you said, is, like my parents, they got to a point where they couldn't move from their colonial four-bedroom house because even if they paid cash for the next house, my dad on a retired professor's fixed income couldn't afford the new taxes in the community that they lived in. So they basically stayed in this giant house, the two of them, and built a fifth bedroom on the primary floor to not have to use stairs. And that was a great home for a move up buyer or um, a first time home buyer or what have you. So this is happening all over, not just Michigan, but all over the country. And one of the, some of the ideas that the task force looked at and are pursuing, for viability and discussion with Lansing are, things like other states have implemented, which include potentially porting your current tax basis. So, if you're at a current rate or a current taxable value of X, then maybe that can be applied to the new home in, if I moved from here to, another property that I would get to keep that rate or, some variation of that rate. And there are a number of different things being looked at like that to try to soften the blow from the pop-up tax and allow for more properties to be able to hit the market so that the hardest hit people are those on fixed incomes and seniors, which is why I think the first approach, as we saw in the previous slides, were um, some sort of relief, for the seniors first. I think that's why it kind of has taken that route initially.
Awesome, awesome. And guys, Jamie was not prepared for this. So when I saw him jump on, I'm gonna pick on him. So Jamie, thank you. I appreciate adding into that. I guess we're gonna run to the next subject matter unless anybody has any additional questions. I think probably above all else, the biggest part, have the general knowledge, be able to speak that it's a bipartisan approach. At least they're now talking about trying to find some kind of remedy that will actually impact everybody. Go ahead, Jamie.
If I can add, I will say that, one of the things that happens with the pop-up tax is, and you all know this firsthand as boots on the ground, that the fingers immediately point to the agent on why didn't you tell me this tax was going to pop up, even though it's on the seller's disclosure and it's signed. So that's one reason why our company, I think, is ahead of the curve by adding language in to the actual purchase agreement so that everybody sees it more than once, just so that it's not a surprise.
With a specific purpose or reason for having it initialed on top of it. So, one of the things, guys, to make sure we do that when we are putting together a purchase agreement, I'd encourage you to still review the purchase agreement with the buyer before they start initialing and signing, or get them on the phone as they go through an initial and sign. So, yeah, Jamie, spot on. There was a reason that we specifically added that verbiage with those initials on that portion. So, thanks for helping out on that, Jamie. Here we go. Let's talk about the next thing. Now, I know we just talked about FinCEN, and probably most of you guys were a part of that call. And there was something in particular that caused me to say, let's bring this back up again. So, quick review. We know it stands for the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. We know that it's the United States Department of Treasury. It's about security. It's about not allowing people to cheat the government or find a way to be able to launder money. So as you can see with its particular uses to preventing illicit activities that, or such as laundering money. So it's going to be a collection of data so that they got places to go that they can make sure that nobody's cheating. It's all of the agencies that are involved, but see, the reason that we're going to, let me recover it. Here was the simplification out of the presentation made by our ATA partnership a couple weeks back. If it's a cash deal, I'm gonna again speak in general terms. Cash deal, land contract, purchase money mortgage, hard money lender, otherwise non-traditional way of getting the money. And the purchaser is not human, such as an LLC, S Corp, something of that nature. That triggers the reporting. That triggers that they've got to fill out a whole lot of information. So again, that's simplified, basically a 50-minute presentation that we were all able to listen to. But a question came up, well, what do we do as far as disclosure? What do we do as far as? Well, I think state of Michigan or Michigan Realtors said, okay, well, let's just create something. So this is new. And you'll see that what I've highlighted here is it's a client notice. This is an optional thing, but it seems to make sense. It's just saying that, look, effective March 26th, here's what's going on. You're going to have to complete this information. Buyers, there's definitely information you're going to have to fill out. Sellers, you need to be on notice. Do I need to use this? Is this a required document by HRC Realty? No, it is not. But some of you are asking, what should we do? Here's a simple form that you can use. Again, I believe we're going to keep them informed anyway. What do we have 40 plus agents on here who are becoming more and more aware of it. But listen, we got over 700, over 800 people, I believe, actually in our company. We're going to have to spread the knowledge. Okay. Now, by the way, picture that. What's everybody else doing? Bottom line is, it's going to become resting upon your shoulders to make sure that you manage the transaction. This is just an additional tool that you can use to make sure we put everybody on notice. Again, John Bomarito, who did that presentation, said that for their experience in the Chicago market, where they already had something similar to this that they had to do, was about 5% of their transactions. So more than likely, we're talking 10% or less, but we all need to be aware of it. Any questions about this one? Yep, Jack, you got it. Yep. Key is know that you got some tools out here, address it, but above all else, know it, manage it. Get to the closing. One of the biggest things that we get paid for, I always break my compensation into thirds. One of those, getting the deal closed, managing all of the details, and this is going to be one of them. All right. Well, let's keep moving. Seller's disclosure. You getting a feeling that this one's going to be a short one? I think so. But this was an interesting one that comes up. So, seller's disclosure. I'm wondering how many people have thought about this. Now, I've written it here, although the act requires it, sellers are not obligated to complete a seller's disclosure statement. I'm waiting for anybody to go, here's mine. Yeah? See, it may be that it's never been put to you this way. The act requires that a seller's disclosure be completed. Anybody know who has to complete it? Anybody want to take a stab at it?
The seller.
It is the seller. So do all sellers have to complete it? Meaning, let's take is a seller of a commercial property responsible to fill one out. And yeah, Jack's up here. You're on top on mine, Jack. Jack's shaking his hope. No. So who is? And this is important, guys, that you know this. You should be able to give this simple little portion. And it's
I would
right at the top of it.
I would also assume if the seller never lived in the property and they always rented it out, would they still have to
Is my
complete it?
face
Because
giving you any
so
clue
many
there,
times.
Linda? Yeah,
Pardon?
we're going to come back to that real quick here.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
going to come back to that one. So, are all residential properties, are anybody that owns a residential property, are they all required to disclose? So, here's why I really wanted to hit this. It is any seller of a residential 1 to 4 family dwelling. Now, there are exceptions, and I can't quote them myself, but here's what I do know. All 1 to 4 family residential dwellings. Well, why not 5 or more? Well, those are considered commercial at that point. So any residential building that has 5 or more units is now commercial. Commercial is not residential, and therefore no seller's disclosure is required. Now, Here's the reason I bring this up. I think there's a particular scenario. Now that we understand, yes, the act says you must if you are a seller of a 1 to 4 family residential dwelling. Oh, interesting question. So, what if the seller owns 200 plus homes? I think you kind of have answered that yourself by who is required to disclose. Any seller of a 1 to 4 family residential dwelling. So, does it matter that this seller owns 200 plus homes, or 1 home, or 1,000? Nope. What are they selling? So that gives you, that person would not, unless it was a 1 to 4 family residential dwelling. Okay, let me come back to the slide then. Sellers are not obligated, leaving the buyers with limited options. So what happens if a seller is not willing to do that? Or in the event a seller hasn't done that? Well, they can either move forward with the deal, but because the seller has not provided one, they got up until the closing to walk away. Yep, Jamie nailed it there.
I have a question then. Since the
Yeah,
seller
go
is
ahead,
not
Lydia.
required to complete a seller's disclosure, why would they have to update it?
Well, again, it's the aspect of the act requires it. However, there's no penalty to the seller not providing it. The risk of the seller not providing it is that the buyer can walk away all the way up until closing. That's the only thing a seller risks by not doing. Now, I say only the action of not disclosing, but might it potentially create problems for them in the future? It might. It totally might create a problem for them.
Darwin,
Yes.
hi. How about if they have a seller disclosure exemption? Is that they still
Ah,
allowed or not?
I'm going to hold on that for just a second, Selma, if that will work,
Okay.
because I do want to talk about one particular situation that we run into all of the time, and then look at who's actually exempt from seller's disclosure. So we have the first very basic one, which is it's 1 to 4 family residential dwelling. So I think I'm going to go back to best to be proactive. We hit that. Okay. We got that. Yep. What about a residential home on industrial property on 22 acres? Are you selling? Here's my book. Are you selling a single family residential dwelling? Based on what the disclosure statement says right at the beginning of it, the answer would be yes, if that's what you're selling. But are you selling a commercial property on 22 acres? Or are they selling it as a dwelling? We got to get that clarification. Now, we may not have that right now. In Marietta, if I remember that one, you're not really selling the house. You're really selling the land. What do you do when in doubt? Have them seek attorney, a real estate attorney, because we can't provide legal advice. The only thing I would do at this point is I'd pull it out and I'd go, well, it says here, Mr. Seller, that it's on 1 to 4 family residential dwellings. Now, if they're still going, yeah, but it's commercial, maybe they should seek legal counsel at that point. Here's the real bottom line to it. It's on the due diligence of we as the real estate agent and the buyer because I'm going to bring you another one here in a moment where you're going to go, well, yeah, but it's on the buyer to do their due diligence, to be able to discover what can be discovered. Let me go to that next situation because this is what brings it up. This is what a lot of sellers always want to do. Well, I've never lived here. Well, let's look behind that, and you guys tell me, this is the exemption from the Seller's Disclosure Act. It is in our sky slope packages for the seller. So if a seller says, well, I don't really need to disclose anything because I've never lived here, then I go, oh, well, let me provide this to you. This is the exempt individuals who do not need to disclose. Go ahead and just initial next to the one that makes you exempt. And what you will find is there's not one for somebody who bought a house, fixed it up, and is turning around and selling it now. It doesn't exist there. So now they've discovered on their own they are not exempt. Do they have a choice? If I said, well, look, I don't want to do this, are you going to make me do it as my listing agent? I'm going to tell you the act says that you must, but if for some reason you choose not to do it, then you're at risk of anybody walking away all the way up until the closing. So would you rather complete it, or would you rather take on that risk? That's my job as a real estate agent, is to inform them and make sure that they know what could happen if they choose not to. Any questions on this one? Go, hey, dude, you know you can just take your and come right off mute, Tom. Tom, you're still muted. Tell you what, while you're
Okay,
trying to figure
there we
that
go.
out. Oh, you
Yeah.
got it there. There you
I-
go.
No, if you're an investor and I think you should invest in, because you replaced a refrigerator, you have maybe updated the electricity. You should brag about that.
Yeah. So as a landlord who's even then, they may have bought it, never lived in it. But as a landlord, look, you replaced the refrigerator. You had an electrician out to replace a breaker box. Who knows all of the things that a landlord would have had done over the time period of ownership. To simply go, I've never lived here, may not be in their best interest. But again, it's up to them. And we all know that a disclosure of a material defect, that's not exempt for anybody. That's exempt for nobody. If you know that the furnace is leaking through a cracked heat exchanger, that's a material defect. Must be disclosed. Okay? Here's one. Yeah, and this is an interesting one. So, Kevin, thanks for bringing this one up. But you helped mom and dad with maintenance for years. So you know something about this house. So let me create that scenario for a second. So Kevin's working with me, and I am taking care of mom and dad's estate. I've taken care of mom and dad for years, took care of everything on the house. And now mom and dad have passed, and I'm trying to sell it. I'm going to hire Kevin, and I'm going, Kevin, but I've never lived here. And Kevin's going, yeah, but mom and dad, you helped him with it all these times, right? Yeah. He says, well, you know more about it than mom and dad probably know about it. right? I go, yeah. What should Kevin do? What should you, if you were Kevin, tell me under this scenario? Well, let's keep it simple on you. There's a great tool that you could use. It's called the Exemption from Seller's Disclosure Act. Is there anything on here that might relieve me of the responsibility of disclosure?
No.
Anybody?
I don't see anything on there. The way I did, I can tell you, I just went through this last year with my mom's house. And the way I did it is I filled it out. And then in the notes section, I said, I've never lived here. This is the best of my knowledge. This is what I understand, even though I've never lived on the property.
That would be one way of doing it. Let me ask you this. Am I required? Jack, you're shaking your head. I like that. I believe it's the right answer. What one of these is going to prevent me from having to do this? Number 4, transfers by a non-occupant fiduciary in the course of the administration of a decedent's estate, guardianship, conservatorship, or trust. So if I've been appointed, guys, what's the term you normally hear? Executor or personal representative. You have been appointed by court. You really don't have to do it. And I will share with you, I asked, you guys know these two, Jack Waller, Rick Linnell. You may remember a couple years back, I brought this up and said, guys, what do we do in this scenario? This exact scenario. There was not a clear answer because obviously I do have the ability based upon, we'll call it limited knowledge. However, I may be exempt. And if I am exempt, is it in the best interest of me and the estate to do that disclosure? By the way, there was no clear answer. One said, I would have them do it. The other said, I don't know if I would have them do it when they're already exempt. I would leave it up to them. Okay. And I think if that seller, like Kevin just brought up, decided to do it, they should probably disclose under the circumstances of what their knowledge is and why they have what they have. Okay. Ooh. What if you receive the home as part of a ladybird deed? Well, now it's different.
Yeah.
I want you to think about that one. Ladybird deed, you're already on the deed. When did you get the property? On a ladybird deed.
Heck, stand it.
When upon the death, it automatically hit. It was yours. Okay. So at that point, there's no closing, there's no nothing, no seller disclosure. And that's actually in here too somewhere. Basically that familial exchange, like here it is between spouses. Yep, there it is. Spouse, parent, grandchild. If you're doing quick claim from you to you and your spouse, it's not required. But again, remember, they have the option up all the way up until closing. Okay. Let's see. Did I have one more? Oh, yeah, this one. First, I want you to make sure that you're always aware of and that you're watching the seller as they begin to fill it out. They always want to do no, it's not included. That's not what no is for. No is it doesn't work. It's there, but it doesn't work. yes, it works, no, it doesn't work, or it's not applicable, or I don't know if it works. But I want you to remember those four things, and you should give them that very specific guidance. So it's saying, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, from your perspective as a general homeowner, yes, it works. No, it doesn't work. I don't know if it works, or it just doesn't exist. It's not applicable. It's not available. Okay? But what's the difference between no, it doesn't work, or I don't know? Let me create a scenario for you here, real quick. What if the seller says no, and then it's found that there is a condition that does exist, such as, and this was a good one. I pulled this. Jamie knows where I pulled this from. The seller said there are no underground storage tanks. They disclose no, and then what happens? Come to find out, after the buyer purchases the property, they found that there is an underground storage tank. So let me ask you, is the seller responsible? Marietta, thank you for being that obvious. And Jason's going like this. All right. Okay. Anybody going like this? I should take a vote. I should have created a poll for this one. That would have been fun to see what the overall result would be. Well, the answer is no. It was an innocent mistake. So the seller answered this to the best of their knowledge. They had no knowledge that there was an underground storage tank. So the innocent mistake between no, there is none, and unknown. Guys, do you absolutely know beyond a shadow of a doubt that one does not exist? Well, I mean, I never put one in. Well, then the choice is up to you, but was the house brand new? Did you build the house? Were you here when God created the dirt? I mean, it really gets down to the point. There's nothing wrong with unknown unless they have specific knowledge. And again, it's how we have to guide people. Guide, not do, not tell them what to put, but guide them. Because I'll even take you back to one other one. What does a disclosure say for the roof? Anybody know for sure? Because you got to know specifically what it says. Here's what it is. Roof, colon, leaks, question mark. Compare that to basement. Is there any history or, gosh, somebody help me out with it, history or has there been any signs of water, something of that nature? Is there any signs of water? I should have looked at this one before I brought it up. It's really asking, it doesn't say water infiltration from the external sources.
It said has there been evidence of water?
That's it. Thank you, Selma. Is there any evidence of water?
Yes.
Is there any evidence of water?
Yes.
That could be staining on the wood. That could be rust
On
on
the floor.
support pipes. That could be rust around the base of a furnace that's sitting
Yeah,
directly
our
on the
basement
floor.
was flooded before because of
Right?
some folks.
So that's what we have to give them is just repeat the question to them. Well, here's what it says, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Is there any evidence of water? Let's see. Yeah, Jack put it here. Partial disclosure could pierce the exemption exclusion for a non-occupant fiduciary. Best to get an attorney to advise a client on how best to proceed with filling out the seller disclosure. So that goes back to the previous one. But yeah, Jack, that was what one of those two individuals suggested, and I kind of lean in that same direction. At first, it seemed to make sense to have them disclose because they do have that knowledge. But man, forcing somebody or telling somebody they have to when they don't, yeah, have them get that legal advice. Well, any questions about this one, or what questions would you have, or any other about the seller's disclosure? Good stuff. Well, with that, here's one last one. It's a bit of a bonus that came out this week. It's like, can they do that? So here's a scenario. Can someone do this? Let's pretend I'm the listing broker and my seller receives an offer that says I got until 12 o'clock on Saturday to get the seller to respond. Or in reality, the seller has until 12 o'clock on Saturday to respond. And then the buyer's agent says, hey, on Friday, sends me a text. The buyers are withdrawing the offer. Can the buyer withdraw the offer before the stated expiration time? I'm seeing, look at even my rookie in Livonia confidently, not this, but this. Guys, the answer is yes, they can. And Kevin, you nailed it right up until they or we have received or delivered. Let me put it that way. I got to do this correctly just to make sure we all got it. They can withdraw anytime up until delivery of acceptance. What qualifies as delivery of acceptance?
That'd be a signed purchase agreement by the seller agreeing to the offer.
Oh, you're close, Linda. You're close. And there's a key word, the delivery of acceptance. So let me give some additional to this question. The seller says, I like it, but I want not a $1,000 earnest money deposit. I want $2,500. It's the only thing they changed. They sent it over. By email, they sent it over. Is that acceptance?
This is a
No.
counter.
Still a counter.
All
No.
right, you guys, I think you're getting, we had a few of you over each other. The answer is no, that is not an acceptance. Guys, that was a rejection. You rejected the offer. You made a change, any change. So whenever you're going to make any counter offer, you better think of it from that direction. You just extended the window for that person to be able to walk away. More importantly, you gave them a reason that they could walk away. But I just made a change. And even though I sent it over, that change was rejection. And therefore, now the buyer gets it. The buyer accepts. But before I've received the acceptance, my seller got another offer that was even more. My seller accepts the offer. Can my seller do that? After all, they made a counter offer. Yes, they can. Why would they be able to do that? Because I didn't receive acceptance of the counter offer from the buyer. It was never delivered. Guys, here's how simple delivery is. Picture me typing in and in. attaching the accepted purchase agreement, push send, binding agreement. There was delivery of acceptance. That email being sent was the delivery. Now, if you've been in it for a while, pre-technology, the only way that we had verification of delivery was by getting a signature. Some of us will remember that. You can tell it's those who are smiling. We needed the signature to show delivery because we have no evidence. So now the only way, well, the way that we get evidence of delivery is by the email being sent. So a requirement is not necessary to acknowledge acceptance. However, why do we have 3 signature lines? When there's a counter, any change. There was a rejection when there's a change. Therefore, the seller made an offer. The buyer must accept. That requires a signature, and it's not binding until they've delivered that acceptance. Now, that's got to be as clear as mud for everybody now. What questions do you have, guys? Everybody's good? Here's what I need from you. I start sweating on Sunday afternoon when I'm in church asking God to give me some guidance and direction as to what I bring to you on Tuesday. Don't make me suffer and ask for him for help. Send me the stuff that comes your way, guys. It makes it a whole heck of a lot easier. And I know, because again, it is hot topic. I'll occasionally be able to set up a guest speaker, something of that nature. If any of you got something that is on your mind, something that you're really great at, somebody I should talk to, interview on here. There's lots of things that we can do for a hot topic. All right. Send it my way, and we'll see if we can put that on air for you. In the meantime, you guys know what we have to do. I don't care how you get it to happen, but we got to be talking to people. Livonia, you're awesome. All right, guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.